I want to show them like, hey, you don't have to believe the literature when it says Black people are going to have this or that. But I can also show you, you will have this if you don't change this or that.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Not All Hood. We're highlighting another segment of our 23andMe sponsored recording at the HBCU New York Classic at MetLife. We had an enlightening conversation with Dr. Jenn Caldwell, a geneticist and researcher at Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and her focus is on how much genetics plays a role in the leading causes of death, including heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. By bridging the gap between genetics and nutrition, because you know how we love to eat the things that we know aren't good for us, Dr. Caldwell hopes to foster healthier behaviors and improve health outcomes in underserved communities. Look, I didn't know that fish and spaghetti were a thing. Enjoy the conversation.
You know, I want to just start off because we're broadcasting this, you know, not just here, but as part of our podcast. So I'd really like to start off so our listeners and viewers can, you know, all be on the same page. Can you explain exactly what a geneticist is and does?
Yeah. So a geneticist is a scientist. We can do basic science. We could do population health, which is what I love. But we're really focused on understanding ancestry, understanding how DNA works, understanding how it becomes proteins, and then we understand how disease manifests. And so we look at that like personally. We look at it on a population level. We may look at it from an ancestral perspective. Yeah, that's what we do. And so we help to diagnose and treat. Sometimes we have genetic counselors, and they may facilitate conversations about how you should, what you should consider if you're pregnant, or what you should consider based on your disease state. So we're really kind of personalized healthcare workers.
And just so people understand, you have your own research lab.
Yes.
Yeah,
I do.
Explain how that works, because that is not something that a lot of my friends do, and I'm not sure about y'all's friends that don't have research labs. Well, what does that mean in terms of the capacity of your work?
Yeah, so at Pennington, so my title is not that long, okay? Let's start.
It was a whole note card.
So at Pennington, sometimes you have departments at universities, and at Pennington, you get your own lab, and you kind of are your own boss. You have to run your lab, manage your budget, write grants, find outreach specialists, find recruiters, recruit patients, participants. We like to call them participants. Sometimes we use a community advisory board. And so we add community workers to help us design projects that can speak life into communities as well. And so I do all of that every day.
So question. So I guess I'm a little bit confused. So when I or the, you know, average layperson think of lab, we think of like there's just one room where scientists is behind a microscope and studying something. But your description of lab seems like it's something way more than just that.
Yeah, it is. It's way more. And so what we're able to do, like once you get out of grad school, thank God, you know, you're not really doing a lot of pipetting anymore. You're more so doing the administrative tasks, which can be a little daunting, but you're writing grants and you're facilitating those projects. And so I wear this every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I look like this. Sometimes I wear sweatpants because
Wow.
I don't want to talk to nobody. But, you know, it's less lab coat work at this level. It's more about facilitating and overseeing the projects.
And you go into different communities.
Mm-hmm.
You build up trust. I know that you're going into a community right now in Louisiana to really look at groups of African Americans, study them, share with them the type of tests that 23andMe do so that they can find out their history. What is that research all about?
In terms of this particular project?
Yeah, that particular product, the Link Project?
Yes, the Linking Gains Project. So right now we have two projects in my lab. The first one is called Linking Gains, and it's a 16-week behavioral intervention. And that is a long name for we're going to give you some help. Okay? We're going to give you some help. But before we give you help, we're going to ask you to take a genetics test. And we would like one group of the participants to get their test results and meet with the genetic counselor at the beginning. And then the other group will meet with the genetic counselor at the end. So we want to see, are you impacted at all by your genetic test results, right? Are you moved? Do you want to participate in the interventions more? Do you want to participate in the interventions less? Are you scared? Like what happens when African Americans in particular see those genetic test results? So that's a really important project because we don't want to see a lot of times.
How do you pick the participants?
You want the truth?
Uh-oh.
As a Black person. Here's a Black person.
I decided that the first couple of years of my lab, I wanted to make things very simple. So you just have to be Black. That's it.
Okay. Right.
And so
Rock with you, Doc. I rock with you.
That's it.
let me ask the obvious question. Why pinpoint specifically Black participants? Like what's the end goal of the research?
So the long story is that when I started off my grad school work, I worked in Gullah Geechee communities in South Carolina.
Oh, amen. Wow.
Yeah, I love them. And I wrote a paper about them being the progenitor African American group. So ultimately, the way colonialism worked, and they were here first. They were the first group. A lot of times we give, rise to Mississippi and Louisiana. That came later. The Gullah community really cultivated Black culture for all of us. And they were able to hold on to it because they were isolated a lot of the time. They didn't spend a lot of time having to deal with certain traumas. I mean, they had them, but it was less time based on the heat, based on the islands, based on the mosquitoes. They couldn't come out there a lot. So long story short, that's how I started wanting to work with Black communities, because I saw that we really lacked in literature.
But can I go back for just for a historical? Because I think it's an important part of why the Geechee have been able to keep their, from the beginning, been able to hold on to their. So the people you're talking about, right, are the slave owners, right, who could not come to these plantations because of the heat, because of the mosquito, all of the things that they are not built for.
Right.
So there was a certain level of, for lack of a better word, autonomy.
There you go.
Though that sounds like a really weird word to use during
slavery.
But there was that because they were not being policed by their slave owners, there was a lot of freedom that they had to be able to hold on to certain aspects of the culture.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting. If you go online and you look at some of the work like weaving of baskets that they do today, and then you go back to, let's see, the 1800s and the weaving of baskets that they did in Ghana, it's the exact same weaving. It's the exact same. I mean, they really were able to hold on to their culture in a different way, which probably makes them a really good test group in that they all kind of are still amongst themselves.
Right. So genetically, usually they will have upward of 90% African alleles. So African ancestry, they hold on to it more, which most African Americans range about 78 to 80s. They will have about 90% African genetics. Wow. In addition, the basket weaving was because they were rice farmers, which is what you would find on the Windward Coast as well. So slavery was a very, very deliberate act. And so they were brought to the South Carolina because of the rice. And then when the cotton gin boomed, we moved from there to the other states.
Yeah. And it's a shame because when we think about South Carolina rice, I think I heard somebody say that, we know that, but the people who own those rice companies, they don't look like us. But we were the ones who, when we came over, we were brought over for that purpose in order to, what is the exact word? How do you harvest rice? Is it? Okay, you harvest it. Yeah. Yeah, you harvest the rice. But it's very interesting too, because for some reason, and I know you must know the answer to this. So it's called the stroke belt down there. Yeah. Now, explain to me, why is it that when we think about even that particular group of people in the Gullah Islands, or even Black folks in general in America, why are the strokes hitting us so much?
So the stroke belt is not particular to one race. Actually, white populations really struggle with stroke in the same area. So you can overlay it, right? Stroke belt, Bible belt, black belt, sometimes it's called that. But it's mostly in the South. We have a lack of walkability in our neighborhoods or in our cities. The way we eat as a whole is a little bit different, a little bit more decadent, you know. Mm-hmm. And What'd you say?
Rich.
Rich. There you go. Those things really overlay Tony's. Those things really overlay to allow things like stroke and cardiovascular disease to persist. So it's a little bit more than just we live there.
Yeah.
We just happen to live there.
Yeah. Our food. You know, I talked to you before and you said we've become, what did you say? We like colors of food that are brown.
Oh, I said we eat brown, red, and yellow.
Yeah, we eat brown, red. When where's the green? And then you talked about the club culture.
I did.
So what's the club culture food you're talking about?
Wait, I'm still stuck on the brown.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I was like, liquor?
Hello.
No.
Now that's too.
The brown, red, and yellow. What's the yellow?
So like, okay. Studio audience.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Finish this plate for me. Okay. I have spaghetti, fried catfish, thank you. And what is my side? Well, yeah, that worked. But what's my vegetable?
Somebody said coleslaw.
Corn on the cob.
Yeah.
That's a starch. That's not a real veggie.
Right.
There was nothing green on that plate. And then you put the catfish with the spaghetti, and the spaghetti gonna have meat in it. It's not a veggie spaghetti.
Right.
That's a lot. Weekly, because we're gonna have this fried fish
I'm
plate.
confused.
You confused?
My catfish didn't have spaghetti. When I had
No? You didn't eat catfish with spaghetti?
Is that a thing?
That's a
Look,
thing.
I know I'm a little different, right?
What you eat your catfish with?
Bread
Hot sauce?
and hot sauce, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but on a day that y'all had more money,
I
what
had
did
never heard of I'm with you, Way, on this one. I have not heard of catfish and spaghetti.
go to your local HBCU on a Friday, and they gonna have
That's right. It's
catfish.
Friday night especially.
Catfish was white bread, fried fish, the greens.
Hush puppies.
At Winston-Salem State, what do we have? And the greens. Yep, that was about it.
Some greens out the can.
I don't know.
That was your first problem.
It was hot sauce on the table though.
But so I was telling Candace that I think that we've gotten away from like cooking at home and knowing what's in our food, and then we also love the club, so we eat club food, and that's chicken wings and French fries.
Fries.
Club food.
So going back to
Right.
the linked again.
Linking games.
LinkedIn games.
Linking.
Linking games.
Yes.
ING, linking games. So the purpose of the research
Mm-hmm.
is to
We want to see how people are impacted by their genetic testing results. So during the 14 weeks, they're going to get like physical training. They're going to get a dietitian. They're going to get culturally conscious cooking. You know what that is? No. It makes sense to you, don't it? Somebody asked me to explain that. I was like, thank you. So we're going to make Louisiana staples in a very healthy way. And so they'll get some therapy too. They'll get like some group therapy. So they're going to be going through like 14 weeks of just different sessions. They'll even get some financial wellness planning too, to make sure they're spending their money right. So we want to see if those activities help, or knowledge of genetic tests, or maybe a combination of those things help you lose a little weight, change your lifestyle habits, and we'll measure their things like their BMI at the beginning and the end.
So there is a possibility that in doing all of these aspects of the project, the eating better, the training, that there could be a possibility that the end result for them, because of genetics, may not be getting losing the weight or having better blood pressure and what have you.
So how do I say this? So in terms of like chronic disease specifically, which is what most people deal with, that's a lot of your lifestyle habit in your environment. Okay. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to teach them, or hope that they learn in the project, is that your genetics, especially the test that we're running, is just about susceptibility. Okay. That just means prediction, possibility, in conjunction with your lifestyle. So we're not really looking at genes that impact like you are going to have this disease.
So
That's not what we're looking for.
So when they're looking at the test, they're not getting the test that says your uncle is your brother.
No. They're getting a risk of like, this is your risk of getting.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we don't take the test, right?
So all genetic tests are not created equal. They're not all created equal.
Okay.
We're looking for different things.
Yeah. Just making clarity right there.
Not this time. This time.
When I told my mom that we were doing the thing with 23andMe, it became a thing.
Yes.
She was like, oh, yeah, we did the test, yada, yada, yada. I'm sorry, Mom. Yo, there's some shit going down in my fam. Right? Because people didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's great to hear that there are these tests that are tapping our genetics and, helping us learn more about the genetic, makeup, right? Yeah. Of and our health too.
Yeah,
we will not be giving you extra children. That is not.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
I get that question a lot too, that's not what I'm looking for. So.
What types of diseases or genetics can you specifically find out about? For example, cardiovascular disease and cancer. Those are the number one killers of Blacks in America. Will you be able to take a test? Which, by the way, I don't know if y'all know that you've got a code where you can get a free test. I think he told you about that. But when they go home and take this test and get it back, can they learn something that specific, or how specific do these types of tests get?
Yeah, so all tests are not created equal. I would definitely say that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time with their doctor because the doctors are real busy. But also, we don't always have the conversation, like know what to ask. You have to hound your doctor.
Right.
And if you can take a genetics test, you need to be like, I want to take a genetics test. Sometimes it's covered by insurance, sometimes it's not, but all tests aren't created equal. So that just means sometimes it's really about ancestry. So I'm looking at your ancestral makeup. And if we were sisters, your genetics still might be a little bit different than mine. And so a lot of times people don't want to take it if one person in the family takes it because, oh, we're related, it's going to look the same. That's not always true. It's kind of a game of dice. You never know what you're going to get, and your genes like move around, and they're not always the same composition in every person. So that's the first thing. The second thing is commercial tests, which is what usually like 23andMe, other companies we won't name, other people y'all might have found out about. Am I right, Curtis? I did that right? Okay. That was good? Okay. But with 23andMe specifically, they're going to do a health test, right? And so they're going to do some genotyping. They're just going to look at a couple of genes, and by a couple, you have millions. So they're going to look at some, right? But they may not look at all. So you can still go to your doctor and say, hey, I would like to show you these results. Do I need to take any other genetics tests? And that's because they just want to give you a sample of who you are. There you go, right. A sample. And that's okay. But, whole genome sequencing is what is used in like clinical trials a lot of times. It's very expensive, and it's to really test like all of you. But they are getting stronger with these tests. They have some development of being able to characterize your face based on your genes.
Well, I have a good question just for, again, like our average, listener or watcher. How does the genetic testing really help? Like, so I go get genetic testing and I find out all this stuff. How do I apply that to my actual life? What does it actually do what do I do with that knowledge?
So a lot of times, again, we're looking at susceptibility with chronic disease. Now, great question, actually. If we're looking at carrier status, so if someone in your family is a carrier for sickle cell, you may want to know that so that if you go mate with somebody else and they are a carrier, you need to know your risk of having a child with the disease. So they do that a lot in Jewish cultures. You have to talk to the priest before you ever can get married, and you have to do a genetics test because they know that they're related. But not a lot of cultures put that into practice. So that's carrier status. Then the other one is Mendelian. Mendelian means you have the gene, you're going to have the disease. And those are more rare. That's usually blood disorders, nervous system disorders,
like lupus, or
like hemophilia, sickle cell, cystic fibrosis, Duchenne muscular dystrophies. Oh, you said we were talking about blood disorders. Sorry, hemophilia, sickle cell, blood. Okay. But those other ones that I named are Mendelian. You have the gene, you get the disease. A lot of what we deal with and go through are chronic diseases, complex diseases, which means it's gene and lifestyle. So that's why, going back to the Lincoln Gaines Project, I want to show them like, hey, you don't have to believe the literature when it says Black people are going to have this or that. But I can also show you, you will have this if you don't change this or that. So it's a lot of times it's about your lifestyle. Are you making sure you walk 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day? You know, and we just live in a different culture now, right? We don't garden anymore. We don't have to walk as far. A lot of times we have desk jobs. So you're really just not giving your body what it needs. And we need a lot of sunshine. We need like just regular nature things.
You talk about that sunshine thing for a little bit?
Yeah.
Talk about how we need that.
Oh, we need extra vitamin D. We need vitamin B12. Like, we just need to, just sit out in nature. Do you ground?
Oh, all the time.
See?
I was talking to my daughter about it the other day. She was mad at me for walking outside with no shoes on. I'm like, girl, I'm a little country.
But we need those things. We really do to survive. So
at the end of our conversation that I had with you before we got on here, you said, you know what? Really, at the end of the day, if we really watch our weight and we're not obese, that's a big part of it. Because a lot of it you can manage by managing the foods that you eat and keeping the weight off your system, because it just has a lot of stress on all of the systems inside of your body.
What Malcolm said earlier was, what do your genes really show you? And your genes help to make protein, right? And your protein moves everything else in your body. So it's either the gene is deleted or the gene isn't functioning at the capacity that it needs to be. And so a lot of times when we get our fruits, vegetables, sea moss, black seed oil, all those things help where our foods are not as rich, vitamin rich anymore. And so those things will help you maintain good DNA repair. And then also with the obesity at Pennington in particular, we're a metabolic center. So we're one of the largest, or the largest metabolic center. And we focus on obesity as the common cause of all major chronic disease. So everyone there looks at clinical, population, and basic research to see how we can get people to live healthier lives, but mostly how we can look at the obesity rate and lower that.
So this may be out of the realm of your wheelhouse, but I was just having a conversation with my brother about this morning. Like what do you tell people? Like, it's expensive to eat healthy. I mean, sometimes we're in a place where eating clean is almost a luxury.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you tell people who say, because obviously, organic food is going to cost more than, foods that come with the gift of pesticide.
My sister went to Whole Foods and she bought eggs. They were $12 last week.
So is there any? So it's a question that comes up because I don't quite have the words, but is there any kind of advice you can give to people who have that? That is an argument against well, I can't afford to eat clean because I can go get this Happy Meal over here that's going to cost the same as some organic vegetables,
and it's convenient.
Yeah,
the Happy Meal was convenient.
Yeah,
okay, it came with the prize. I'm just saying.
And it came with the prize, right?
Came with the prize.
The short and rough answer is you're going to pay one way or another.
Yeah.
How you want to pay?
Word.
Now or later.
Okay.
Now or later.
Word.
Yeah.
But the long answer is that, like, I'm constantly looking for grants and collaborations, thinking about local government, thinking about how to get insurance providers involved in, pushing health, right? We've been pushed on pills. We've been pushed on Ozempic. But no shade to Ozempic either. It's, if you need it, if you want it, whatever. But we've been pushed in that direction. Why not push us to live healthier lives in other ways, like community gardens? I'm really about to laugh. But yes, that's what I think we should do. It's like, how can we work together as a community to be preventative instead of interventions, prevention? That's my thought on it. But you gonna pay.
That's real. That's
we were talking about HBCUs in general, just, this whole weekend. And in terms of stressors that come along with just general stressors, but then also stressors with being Black in America inside of this systematic racism. what can you tell us about managing the stress within our life that will also help us deal with our day-to-day and having a longer life? Because really it's all about, and this is a word, where's the executive producer, Lane? He loves this word, epigenetics, right? Because it has to do with kind of your culture, your environment. That's a very large part of it. But so to connect it with this HBCU weekend, we were talking about just the fact that there are a lot of stressors that come when you go to other types of universities than being in a Black environment. It's more than a thing.
And just being Black in America,
yeah,
you know, just dealing with systemic racism. Like that's a real thing.
It definitely is a real thing. And there is a lot of research on structural racism and how it plays a role in like redlining. I know some, slipped me. They provide pharmacists. There we go. So they provide drugs. Pharmacists who are looking at getting more help at CVS and Walmart and Walgreens, just because people have those in rural areas and they don't necessarily have those in big cities. And so when you think about epigenetics, it's everything around the gene, outside of the gene, the environment of the gene. And so again, those nutrients, the food, the supplements, all of those things, but then those stressors, they can help to close your genes too early. We think about genes in terms of time and space and function, right? They have to function at a certain time. And if they can't open or close, then that's how we think about epigenetic regulation, right? But the stress can cause that. So being in an HBCU environment for me was kind of stressful sometimes, but it was very relaxing in terms of, I know everyone here means me well in some capacity.
Right.
And you don't have to look over your back in the same way, or if I say something or do something, it's going to be received, you know, in good faith for the most part. Now, not all the time, but you know,
there's some of us out there.
But they understand you, you know, they understood what, you know, where you were coming from.